They're smaller.
Oh.
So these are nice and roomier.
Yeah. Let us know when we're ready.
I'm not speaking good English today. I don't know what my problem is. It's not coming out.
Call to order. Flag salute, please. Pledge allegiance to
To the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
So I'm fortunate to be able to read a majority of this tonight, so we don't have to share excessive sharing of microphones. So I'm going to read the Open Public Meetings Act statement. New Jersey Open Public Meetings Law was enacted to ensure the right of the public to have advance notice of and to attend the meetings of public bodies at which any business affecting their interest is discussed or acted upon. In accordance with the provisions of the Act, the Board of Education caused notice of this meeting to be published by having the date, time, and place thereof posted at the Augusta, Branchville, and Sussex post offices, and notice sent to the New Jersey Herald, the Advertiser North, and the clerk of the boroughs of Branchville and Sussex, and the townships of Frankfort, Lafayette, and Wantage. Mission statement. High Point Regional High School, in partnership with staff, family, and community, is dedicated to the quest for individual excellence. By fostering high standards of achievement, we prepare students to become responsible and productive members of a diverse society. And roll call, please.
Prior to roll call, I need to read a statement. On Thursday, March 25th, 2021, the president of the High Point Regional School Board of Education received an electronic communication from board member William Kehoe of Mr. Kehoe's decision to resign his position as board member that same date. The board president accepted his resignation as originally transmitted and would like to publicly acknowledge Mr. Kehoe's many contributions to the board. Mr. Kehoe is a past president of the board and served on many committees to foster the continued success of the school district. The entire board wishes Mr. Kehoe the best in all future endeavors and again extends its gratitude for his years of service. And although we don't have to take a vote on this, Mr. President, if it's okay if I could do an all in favor on accepting?
Absolutely, yes.
All in favor accepting the resignation of Mr. William Kehoe?
Aye.
Any opposed? The ayes have it, and the resignation is accepted. With regret. Mrs. Anderson?
Here.
Mr. Klein?
Present.
Mr. Arnold?
Here.
Ms. Nugent?
Here.
Mr. Carrazza?
Present.
Ms. Smith?
Here.
Mr. Dunn?
Here.
Ms. Sedona?
Here.
Dr. Ripley?
Here.
Myself? Mr. President, we have a quorum.
Excellent. So due to the resignation of one unexpired term as a Wantage Township representative, the High Point Regional High School Board of Education is now accepting letters of intent along with a resume from interested residents of Wantage Township. To qualify for this Board of Education vacancy, individuals must be a citizen of the United States of America, be at least 18 years of age, be able to read and write, be a resident of Wantage Township for at least 1 year, and be a registered voter in Wantage Township, New Jersey. Letters and resumes should be sent to the board secretary and received by 3 p.m. on Tuesday, May 11, 2021 to be considered. This vacancy will also be posted in the board-approved newspapers, on the district website, and the Wantage Township Municipal Building. We'll now make a motion to enter executive session. A motion will be made that the High Point Regional High School Board of Education enter executive session to provide an update on negotiations, legal and personnel items which are exempt from public participation pursuant to New Jersey Public Law 1975, Chapter 231, Open Public Meetings Act. Any discussions held by the board which need not remain confidential will be made public when appropriate. Minutes of the executive session will not be disclosed until the need for confidentiality no longer exists. The board will reconvene in public session, virtually and in person, at the conclusion of the executive session. It is not anticipated that any action will be taken. May I have I'll make a motion. Can I have a second?
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed? We are now in executive session. All right, can I have a motion, please, to return to public session?
Motion.
And a second?
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed? We are now back in public session. So, we'll proceed to unfinished business, of which we have none, correct? Does anyone have any unfinished business? Could we have approval of the minutes, Mr. Updike?
We have the minutes from March 16th and executive session minutes from March 16th. I don't think that there's anything that jumps out on those. If anyone has any questions regarding them, I think that they were pretty uncommon. We do have our budget, tentative budget vote. There was some conversation on that. I think that was the highlight of that meeting, but otherwise it was pretty standard and nothing that truly jumped out.
Have a motion on the minutes?
Motion.
Second, please.
Second.
Roll call on minutes, please.
Mr. Caraza?
Yes.
Ms. Sedona?
Yes, but abstain from,
The executive?
yeah, the executive.
Ms. Smith?
Yes.
Ms. Nugent?
Yes.
Mr. Klein?
Yes.
Mrs. Anderson?
Yes.
Mr. Arnold?
Yes.
Mr. Dunn?
Yes.
Motion carries.
Okay, we now have our first public comments session on agenda items only. In accordance with the Open Public Meetings Act, we will open the public comments for agenda items only at this time. Each speaker should state his or her name and address. You will have 3 minutes to address the board, which will be timed by the board president, myself. We will limit this section to no longer than 45 minutes. Please be respectful and mindful that your comments are being recorded. Now, we have two options for making public comments. We have the podium here in person, and I believe we have our virtual session where if an attendee or a member of the public wants to make comments, they are to raise their hand via the Zoom application, and we will look for your and recognize you and get you in to make your public comments that way. So anyone in person? None in person. So help me, Mr. Yardley. Did you see anybody?
Not yet.
If somebody is online and looking to make comments, public comments, now is your moment. I see nothing. Okay, there is going to be another public comments period later on in the evening. So I'm going to ask for a motion to close public comments.
Motion.
Second?
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Okay, all opposed, any opposed? The public comment session, agenda items only, is now closed. So we will proceed to our presentations for the evening. We are going to ask Ms. Kelly Shore, the senior class secretary, if she would provide an update to the board on the activities of the student council, so that then she can be excused and not have to sit through this whole boring meeting.
So we will have 15 meetings this year, with our 16th being tomorrow. And from April 12th to April 16th, we had a Welcome Back to School Spirit Week, which was Team Jersey Day, Constitution Day, Bring Your Breakfast to Class Day, Hippie Day, and Class Colors Day. And the participation totals from the past 2 Spirit Weeks were added together for the Clash of the Classes competition, which is where each class competes against each other for a prize at the end of the year. And a free afternoon has been proposed for the winning class. So one afternoon in June for the last 2 periods of the day, students will get to go outside on the bleachers or walk around the track, play games in the field, and there will be music and other organized activities. And we'll have one final Spirit Week in May to finalize the numbers. And as they stand now, freshmen have 575, sophomores have 775, juniors have 650, and seniors have 675. And to encourage a sense of normalcy and create a fun, welcoming addition to the school entrance, the windows outside the main office are currently decorated for April. We have a sun, raindrops, and flowers. And each month the theme changes based on the season, holidays, or other nationally recognized events. And for May, they will be filled with flowers. And in conjunction with Pride, we have supported 2 Among Us game nights on February 12th and April 1st by supplying gift cards for student participants. After the students play Among Us for an hour, Mrs. Lembo spins an online spinner that stops on a random number, and the student participant whose name is on that number wins a gift card to Quick Check or Dunkin'. And our next event will be virtual bingo on May 14th, and student council will donate $75 worth of gift cards to Pride for the winners. And starting next week, student council will sponsor a weekly contest during lunch. Mrs. Schaefer will purchase candy and gift cards to Quick Check, Dunkin', and Walmart. And she's numbered every social distancing seating placard on the bleachers. And using a microphone, a number will be announced, and the student sitting on the seating placard with that number will take a photo of their placard and bring it up to Mrs. Schaefer, and they will be able to choose a gift from the gift table. And this will all be done following social distancing rules. That's all.
Thank you.
Thank you. Thank you.
Did anyone have any questions? Thank you very much. Next presentation is the public hearing on the final 2021-2022 budget, presented by Dr. Ripley and Business Administrator Tina Palachek. I was asked to note to the public that the presentation will be given via the live stream feed, but it is also available on our website for anyone who would like to have a copy of that entire presentation. Dr. Ripley?
Good evening. Ms. Palasek and I had gone around the town councils in the last few weeks to present to them the board's budget. And I just wanted to bring that up because there were some board members who attended with us. Mr. Dunn, Ms. Nugent, came to attend those. You were there too, I forgot about Branchville.
It's okay. I was the first one.
I'm sorry, it was, more than a week ago. I just want to say thank you because it was very helpful, and your presence there was support, and sometimes those meetings can be challenging, and you being there was very much appreciated. Thank you. So, one of the things that I started out by saying to the community was, unfortunately last year, we had COVID. And what happens is, when you don't have the opportunity to speak face to face, you put up walls. Because what happens is, you hear rumors, you hear stories, you hear narratives that don't fit your own and that you're displeased with. And so what happens is, we create scenarios because we don't have the opportunity to discuss. We didn't have the opportunity to meet with people face to face last year. And so when the High Point budget was approved, people were upset. Understandably so. And I said this to each town council. I want to start immediately by saying I understand that the town councils were upset last year, and I appreciate that and I respect that. It is my hope that this evening we'll be able to explain why the narrative of the 14% does not appropriately explain or present the numbers. I'm not going to spin numbers. I am not a numbers guy. I don't discuss statistics. That is far above my intellectual ceiling. But what I am going to do is present the realities of redistribution of wealth and the fact that we have responsibilities to maintain the facilities. And so that's essentially what we want to talk about tonight. And I think the numbers and the presentation will support that. And so as we see the facilities here, it's something that our community is so incredibly impressed with and proud of. They're very pleased with their building, and it is their building. And so that's why we put it out there first. Obviously, this picture was taken by a drone from a former student. Yes, there you go. All right. Slide number 2. So let's discuss exactly, we'll just cut right to the chase. When I talk about redistribution of wealth, what has happened is there was a determination, a tax, S2, what's that? A formula. It was a formula created about 12 years ago, maybe longer, that the state created so as to fund school districts. That formula is unknown. As a matter of fact, there's a group in the state called SOS, Save Our Schools, that has Oprah'd that formula from the state. In over a year, since that Oprah has been submitted, that formula has not been revealed. The reason I bring that up is, it is an antiquated, out-of-date formula that just should not apply to the school districts in Sussex County, such as High Point, which are so vast in distance and in land, but not so much in population. And so it doesn't fit. Nevertheless, we are seeing significant state aid reductions. We are now in year 4 of an originally proposed 7-year reduction. Essentially, it's year 5 because the first year they cut 2. Give me a second, I'm going to drink some water if you don't mind. That will be a recurring theme that I'm hopeful I don't read about. Drinking water. All right, so the reduction in state aid this year was $797,000. That's a significant number. However, the reality is last year it was $750,000. The year before that it was about $392, or no, it was maybe $400. Essentially what I'm saying is, over the last 4 years, we have seen a reduction of approximately $2.3 million in state aid. Now, when we talk about state aid, I want us to understand what that means. That's our tax dollars that are now not going to fund our students' education here at High Point, but they are going elsewhere throughout the state to fund other students' education as we begin to see this redistribution of wealth. So far, of $2.3 million in High Point, there are still 3 years to go. And those 3 years are supposed to be the most steep 3 years of the original cuts. And so we were told at the beginning of the 7-year anticipated cut that it would be $2.7 million in total. Obviously, it has picked up pace to the degree that High Point will be singularly funded by local tax dollars at the end of that 7 years. We will essentially become Chatham at the end of our 7 years. Now, I love our community. I think it's beautiful and bucolic. I don't know that it's Chatham. Not that it's not as bucolic, but I don't know that it's as affluent. And so, due to the reductions in state aid, last year we were forced to go to a number that people struggled with, and I'm going to get to that as we move on. But this year's budget, tentatively scheduled and approved by the board, was a 2% increase on the tax levy of $331,000. Where do we spend the money? Obviously, when school districts create budgets, the bulk of the budget goes to salaries and benefits. However, recognizing that we have to survive the redistribution of wealth from Trenton, we have to make sure that we reduce strategically so as not to take away from the education of our children and not to take away from the facilities. So as you'll see, salaries and benefits add up to what? 66% there. Last year that total was 70%. And so what we're trying to do is appropriately reduce that area, unfortunately, so that by the end of the 7 years, we still maintain, if possible, a vital, a curriculum that is reflective of the needs and the wants of the community, but also one that is arguably as strong and as rigorous as any, if not more so, in the area. So you can see the breakdowns of those others, but really essentially what mattered on this slide was we've reduced from 70% last year salary benefits to 66% this year. And so as we get into the numbers, I'm going to defer to the business administrator, Ms. Palisek, who knows numbers far better than I, and I could possibly misspeak, and we don't want that.
You do the buttons. Okay, so in the 2021 proposed budget, We are looking at general fund, which is our Fund 11, and we're looking at our special revenue, which is our grants, and any of the different, for IDEA, Perkins, Title I, Title II, most of those are specifically programmed and geared toward a specific population, which would be out-of-district tuition payments for our special ed students. They will be, for Perkins, it's a variety of future business leaders, doing that one, future business leaders, and different other Title I, which would be in our school system for the special needs students. So those are very specifically designed, and you can't deviate from those. Looking at our, yes, ma'am.
I'm having a hard time hearing.
I can do this.
Okay. It's those refrigerators behind you. It's not my bad old lady ears, I swear.
When my mom was the cafeteria lady, you could hear her though.
Yes.
She actually yelled at Scott one time. She did. So when you look at the proposed appropriations for 21-22, we are proposing to reduce the appropriations or our expenditures, reducing the general fund expenditures by $738,465. But we are also, we have a reduction in our special revenue because we have a reduction again this upcoming year in the monies that we will receive from the federal government as well as the state aid that Dr. Ripley talked about. So our budget appropriations, we actually have a reduction of $778,316. And this, when you look at contractual obligations, there's very little that we have control over. The utilities will go up, we have out-of-district placements that we have to provide for students in order to give our special needs students the right environment, the right curriculum, and the right programs that they can be successful. There's only a few areas that we have the ability to make adjustments, and that is in our discretionary spending. And the superintendent and the administration of school work very diligently to sharpen the pencils and get the numbers down. So that is why we were able to still provide a good budget, but with a reduction in our appropriations. Budgeted revenues, everything in red in the final column is a reduction. So when you look at the proposed 2021-22 school year, we do have the 2% increase on the tax levy of $331,458. But you will see a reduction in the Montague tuition. We haven't really gotten the firm numbers on exactly who's coming, that it does deviate depending on who decides to go to Sussex County. So there could be some fluctuation in that number. Miscellaneous adjustments from prior year. That number, you're looking at E-rate money that comes in and different limited sources. We are anticipating a reduction in that number because the funds that were coming in before are not going to be, they're not anticipated. State aid, again, we're looking at a reduction of 15.54% or $797,233. Huge number. Medicare, again, another reduction, it's $296, but again, that's the money we get for Medicare students. It's a federally funded program, so we get reimbursements for certain programs that the school provides for the students who qualify for Medicare. Withdrawal from the maintenance reserve. This was a topic of conversation at the tentative budget vote. Legitimate conversation. I want to thank the board for actually putting the $150,000 into that last year because being able to use that is helping us to bridge the gap where we do have the reduction in the state aid. And I assure you that I absolutely cannot utilize those funds for anything but non-salary maintenance costs. I had a very long, detailed conversation with our auditor and Neil Kramer. It's very specific on how it can be used. I value my reputation, I value my job, and I assure you it is going to be used only for that. And it's helping us bridge a gap in our funding, so it is allowing us to provide a solid budget that we will not look at a deficit. So I thank you for that because it is there. So our subtotal for the general fund, $22,758,353. is a reduction of 3.14%, or 738,465. Our special revenue, the Fund 20, again, the numbers match with a reduction of 39,851. So you see the balance of the revenues and the appropriations are both at 22,984,176.
And so what's important here, I think, is the fact that, yes, the tax levy is the compelling factor. Everybody wants to hear about the tax levy, and I'm not shying away from that. The reality, however, is if you look at that bottom number, 23,762,000, which was the budget last year. This year, the budget's 22,984,000, a reduction of 778,000. The point being is that the board is demonstrating fiscal responsibility by cutting spending, even while being reduced by the staggering numbers. And I think that gets lost because we hear tax levy and we hear that number at 2% or whatever it is. In the past, this board had cut 7%, and that never seemed to be communicated in the narrative in the community. And of course, last year, I understand that. But irrespective of that, the board continues to reduce the spending in spite of the fact that they've lost such significant amounts of state aid.
So here's a breakdown of the municipality tax share. These figures are generated through our ASSA report that we do October 15th of every year. That is the application for state school aid. So whatever the enrollment is for each of our sending municipalities, that figure is translated into this mysterious formula that no one can get their hands on, and that is how they determine what percentage, including the tax assessment of the value of the homes, and it's all mixed together, so this is how they come up with the formula. We are looking at a reduction in students from 796 to 775. With the students from Montague, the report that we put in is at 834, so we do see a decrease in the enrollment. However, you'll see in a later slide that we continue to see an increase in our special education tuition costs, even with the enrollment going down significantly each year. We'll also see an increase in transportation costs because last year in the beginning of COVID, there was an executive order that was given by the governor that we are mandated to pay transportation costs whether the wheels roll or not. That goes against my license to pay for goods and services that were not received. But the problem is, as Dr. Ripley said, because we live in such a beautiful rural area, transportation is premium, and had we decided we were going to cancel contracts, it sounds great because you can save a little bit of money, except when you go to try to get the contracts back, they are few and far between and they raise the prices considerably. It is their market. So even though we did pay for transportation last year, we saved money in the long run, and I know that sounds a little backwards, and it is, but unfortunately, we have limited availability of transportation companies in our area. We do have a huge need for transportation. Our students come from a large area. Dr. Miller, a long time ago, had a tour of the region. I wrote that up, so I remember that one. And it's a vast area that the buses do have to go. And so you'll see increases in those costs, even though you see a decrease in our enrollment. And this is, again, how the percentages work out for each of the municipalities.
We've done demographic studies with the sending districts and believe that the reduction in enrollment is leveling off after this year, and we'll begin to see a slight uptick over the next 4 to 5 years. I do, however, know that since COVID has hit, our community, the property values have gone up and the sales of homes are significantly increased. And so we're hopeful that increases our enrollment.
So here's how the total tax levy is divvied up between the municipalities. The municipality of Branchville for the proposed 21-22 school year is going to see a decrease of 11.7% in their share. Frankfurt will see an increase of 7.2%. Lafayette will see a decrease of 8%. Sussex will see an increase of 2.4%. And my hometown, Wantage, will see an increase of 3.8%. And again, this is determined through the tax office for the county. All the tax assessments, the taxables that they have are enrollment for each municipality and the elusive formula that the Department of Education uses in conjunction with those figures.
So we've already discussed this. The reason why we put this in is that we wanted to make it clear to the towns and the board and to the people watching at home that this is a rigorous process. The board does spend an entire year preparing the budget, having conversations about how we're going to allocate money, how we're going to strategize to deal with the state aid reductions, which has been a 7-year plan that we developed in the very beginning when this started, and we have we've seen it through this far. Our hope is to be able to, at the end of this, be able to still maintain the integrity of our curriculum for our kids. And that is the entire plan, and we're hopeful to be able to do that. It's going to be a significant challenge. All right, here's the redistribution of wealth of which we were speaking earlier. I know there's a lot of numbers here. I'm just going to hit the highlights. So in 2016-17, in fiscal 2017, you can see that the state aid was $6.4 million. Now it is 4.1, a reduction of 2.3 million. However, and over here you can see it's called an equalization aid. This is the number that I've stated will likely become 0 by the end of the 7 years. That number. The rest is relative to other factors. We're talking about state aid reductions. We're essentially talking about this number and this number. As you can see, we're already in the zeros here. So we're seeing significant reductions, 797, 753, 478, 144. To be able to manage that and still maintain the integrity of our education system is brutally hard. And what we're trying to do is still reduce costs so that that brutally hard is not overly borne out on the taxpayer. Further evidence of the board's fiscal management, budget development. Now, there have been conversations last year when the board was forced to go to 14%. Again, I'm not going to avoid that number. I understand that it caused great consternation in the community, and I've had conversations with the town leaders over this matter. Many of whom, or many people have said to me, okay, well when you were reducing 7% one year, and 2% another year, and 3% another year, or flat the next year, why didn't you just go to 2% like other people did? It's a rational excuse, 2% every single year. That's what you should do. So I want everybody to understand, 14% is a kick in the stomach. However, the fiscal responsibility demonstrated over these number of years, what is that, 7 years? If the board had gone to 2% each year, rather than attempting to build budgets from the ground up, that's what this board does. Ground up budgets, we don't start at 2%. And so that enables you to reduce costs, tax levies at some point. If this board had gone to 2% each year, rather than what they actually went to, it would have cost the community $10.75 million more than it did. And so when we hear about 14%, that becomes the singular narrative. Not this, that we've saved the community $10.75 million. And so look, I'm not trying to avoid the 14%, but we need to hear context, which we unfortunately were unable to provide last year because of COVID. That, I think, is a staggering reality that due to the fiscal responsibility of not going to 2% each year, the board has saved the communities $10.75 million. All right, this is another, I'm almost done. Another slide that talks about how we've reduced costs, reduced salaries, but however, look at out-of-district costs. Out-of-district tuition has gone up significantly. Look at those numbers every single year. That's non-discretionary. We have no ability to adjust this number like we do this number. I don't have a pointer, so I have to come up and point to it. And as we can also see, transportation costs are significantly increasing as well. These are non-discretionary spending. We have to. That's the law. That's the way it works. And so I think this further demonstrates fiscal responsibility. All right, another more of the same. You see we've reduced salaries by more than $2 million over this same period, while special ed costs have gone up $1.2 million, transportation costs have gone up by $400,000. So it gives you further context of our ability to try to be fiscally responsible, irrespective of the dreaded 14%. And I'm not mitigating, I'm speaking of it openly because I understood. But we didn't hear this context a year ago because of COVID. There are other people who say, why is it that Montague is paying $16,700 for a student, and I look on the website, on the state website, it says we're paying $28,000 per student. It's a good question. However, the reality is that $16,700 does not include special ed costs, nor does it include transportation. And so that number of $16,700 per student that Montague pays us is closer to $26,000 when you add all the disaggregated costs in. So it's far closer. As a matter of fact, if you were to reduce our Montague partners, the weight of that would be borne on our local communities, which is just not an option. And so that has helped the board significantly. Finally, this was a letter that was written in March so as to communicate to our stakeholders, to our parents, to our community. We posted on our social media websites, and we sent it out to all parents and the community. And what it's saying is it's explaining how the state aid cuts have done such significant damage. Not just to High Point, but to all of Sussex County. There's only one school district in the county who's gained money. And let me say this, some of the superintendents with whom I've spoken around the state who have gotten significant amounts of money, do you think that they know how to spend a windfall of $2 million in 1 year? It's profligate. What are you going to do? Buy 2,000 Chromebooks for what? 3 kids? The reality is they can't spend it because the nature of the cuts and the nature of the redistribution of wealth has been so significant that it is an inefficient process that is harming Sussex County. And so what we wanted to do is get that out to our community and provide the links to local government officials and state officials so that people could voice their concerns over the nature of that redistribution of wealth. And so I know that this has been lengthy. I wanted to talk about the fact that a narrative was communicated last year. It began a situation where walls went up between community members, and I think that the narrative was unable to be explained thoroughly. I'm not spinning anything. I'm not trying to sell you snake oil. I am presenting to the board what the board has demonstrated, which is fiscal responsibility, irrespective of 1 year removed from an 8-year period where the board has saved significant amounts of tax dollars for our community. And I think it's important to talk about that. I did talk about this with the town councils, not all of whom were pleased with it, but finally we had the opportunity to have discourse. And so that is the High Point budget for the fiscal 2022, and I very much appreciate the amount of work and time that went into this in the business office and among the Finance Committee and the rest of the board. Thank you for your attention. Any questions?
Any questions from the board? I was fortunate enough to see your presentation a few times, so I know I don't have any questions.
It's a good way to put it.
Thank you, Dr. Rick.
Thank you.
I believe now we move on to the principal's report and athletics report. Mr. Kellerman?
Good evening, everyone. So having us in this cafeteria setup. This is, as you can see, a little bit of a sample of what our lunch setup looks like. With these would be more in place, obviously, but thank you for being here this evening. I don't know if Dr. Ripley, if you use an apple, make sure we sanitize first, part of the product after that. We used to have these wipes all over the place, and I know this is really good. Okay, so I wanted to give you a couple key things. First of all, I want to say thank you to our staff. It's been 13 months. We look back at last year of March 13th, when the whole state and education changed for a lot of reasons, right? And I also want to say thank you to our staff who have worked diligently. Much of what we're doing right now this evening with the hybrid type of presentation with teaching individuals that are at home and presenting to them and presenting to individuals that are here is very similar to what our teachers do every single day. So I want to say thank you to them as we prepare for many of the appreciation days and weeks that come up. I always say that when we celebrate those as individuals, they're important to recognize, whether it be for the custodians or the administrative assistants, which was last week, or the teachers, which is coming up in May. But it's important to make sure we have appreciation for each other, what everybody does, and the moments in between, because it truly is a team effort, from the setup of this cafeteria to our IT staff, to everybody in between. So we're very, very appreciative of that. Along the same lines, I'd like to say to our students who had to go home and do some work, and get our homework done, which is good. Thank you to them, because without them, we wouldn't be here. Because they're the ones that follow the guidelines, they're the ones that make sure they come to school on time, they're the ones that adjust and adjust and adjust and continue to every single day demonstrate the ability to just persevere. Persevere through everything that changes. Can you imagine in your mindset when you were 15 or 16 or 17 or 18 years old and being asked to have to face a lot of challenges they are facing? So kudos to them and what they do every single day. We're very proud of them. As you can see, if you get bored of my presentation for a couple minutes, just look up there because there's a really cool PSAs that are going through. All those PSAs were created through our Media Tech program and by our students, mostly our social media ambassadors. So again, some health and safety reminders, but also our daily announcements and everything else that goes along to that. A couple of student accomplishments like I like to have every single month. We had the Center for Prevention and Counseling Free to Be Me, which was an alcohol-free PSA contest that's sponsored every year by that organization. They've done a fantastic job. I think they said it was over 14, 15 years that they've been doing it. And this year had to be in a virtual setting, but they do a town hall. And in that town hall, they recognize students from all across the county that participated and submitted their video submissions, their radio announcements, and or their artwork as well. So we had several students that were chosen. Joel Morales, Mia Shabaka, Ava Veldrin, and Kate King were selected for their video submission. Again, through our Media Tech program, they did a fantastic job, and those were actually linked to the Center for Prevention's website, where you could actually see them and go on and view them. And also Kira Chismar and Lena Olak for the artwork submission as well. So two other students for their artwork were selected, so we're very proud of them. And they had a Zoom virtual town hall where individuals were able to present them. It was really neat because parents were able to attend as well as virtually, so it was kudos to them for standing up for what they believe in, and then also standing in front of that. It's one thing to stand up for what you believe in, it's one thing to put yourself out there and represent that and say, this is what I believe in, this is what I stand for, and then demonstrate that through artwork or video submissions. Also, congratulations to Sammy Perez. Sammy was part of our All Eastern virtual experience, and she was chosen to the All Eastern Honors Treble Choir, which according to Mr. Riccardi is a very, very, very high honor. So congratulations to Sammy. And this past Thursday, April 23rd, they had a All Eastern Treble Choir music band virtual concert, which was orchestrated by many different individuals. But again, it was all done through Zoom and technology, as we see today, was able to bridge that gap. So congratulations to Mr. Riccardi, Mrs. Martin, and Sammy on her accomplishments as well. We also had a couple of art students that were recognized through our Walco Valley art show, which was again virtual. We had Angelina Durasimo for her third place drawing and color. We had Kylie Donofrio for her second place sculpture and crafts. We had a Rising Star College Summer Program Scholarship for juniors, and that was Brianna Dunn. So congratulations to those three art students and our Fine Arts Department again for being represented, even when it's in a virtual setting, and being led by that. You heard Kelly talk a little bit before about SAVE and Pride and what they're doing. And I just wanted to highlight that group this evening because they have a few individuals that have actually been selected for county positions and also some state positions that they're working to. So kudos to Mrs. Lembo, who's the advisor for that group, and to our students that are part of that. So I just wanted to give them a shout out. We had Jalen Morales, Joel Morales, Samantha Perez, Ariana Kojukero, and Paige Young. Were part of the Safe Promise presentation, which was a virtual presentation that was given. They were selected. They had to apply for that, and they were selected. So kudos to them for bidding themselves again in a leadership position. And there's also a Tyler Clemente Ambassador Program that's run originally through Rutgers and through other organizations. It's now become a nonprofit for the unfortunate loss of that individual several years ago. You all remember gaining national attention. And because of that foundation, they again choose opportunities for students that are in SAVE and other organizations to stand up and be present and also give themselves the opportunity to lead. So Joel Morales and Lindsay Orlana are day one leaders for that program, and they're looking at working on an upstandard design competition where they're going to try to incorporate students from our school, and actually be an upstander, somebody that stands in the gap, right, stands up for somebody that's being bullied or harassed, and be a difference maker. So kudos again to that group of individuals and students for recognizing that there is a need, but also being willing to be part of that change. Kudos to Mrs. Lembo for coordinating that. A couple of school updates, if I may, before we shift over to athletics, is we are indeed trying to have our senior prom. So our senior prom is scheduled for May 27th. We are excited to hear the announcement yesterday, for those who did not know, that there is a little bit of a lifting of some restrictions. So it will still be in a healthy and safe environment. When we follow all the guidelines, but the governor did allow for a little bit more flexibility with some of those end of year activities, and that was announced yesterday, so we're excited that will take place. It will be at the Lake Mohawk Country Club for our seniors, and we're also going to open it up to other underclassmen as well, at the request of the seniors, to try to have more of a school type of event within the capacity of what we're able to have. So we're excited for that. We're excited just to give the seniors something. To be honest with you, we opened up the senior courtyard as part of our transition plan. And it was amazing on our first day out there to have seniors out there and the smiling eyes, and obviously when they're eating, they got their mask down, and just being kids and being with each other. It was really heartwarming to see that, and just to see the joy that they had just being part of that and asking questions about, hey, can we do this, hey, can we do that? So that was very exciting to see. So we're glad to be able to have the senior prom and look forward to that on May 27th. And kudos to Mrs. Sabo for doing a tremendous amount of work behind the scenes. It is not easy to try to plan an event in this time period that we're in right now. So we're very appreciative of all of our efforts, and Ms. Sabo and myself, and Mr. LeDuc, and many of the senior officers and reps meet regularly, almost weekly in the last month or so, and that's been good, but a lot of work goes into it as well. Speaking of what we're continuing to do, we are trying to build a master schedule. As Dr. Cook said, with the budget, business must still go on, right? We have to continue to do that, so we are continuing to build a master schedule for 2021-22. We look forward to continue to work and build as much of a student-centered schedule as we possibly can with flexibility. What I mean by that, as Dr. Cook highlighted before, we don't necessarily know the different areas, what they may look like, right? So within flexibility for what next year will bring and what that will look like overall. And then just a final note about the transition to the full-day schedule. We are working at that. We're continuing to get more students in the building. Every day we seem to be a little bit more. We're excited about that. This is one of our main areas for lunch, as well as the annex, which you usually are in. We have our meetings next door, and then the West Gym as well is converted fully into our cafeteria. Everybody is socially distanced at all times when they're having lunch. So between these two locations, we have about 90 seats that are really utilized, and about 85 in the West Gym using the big tables. Those big tables are those huge big tables that were in here before. 2 people per table, that's all we can get. So that's what we do. And then we have the bleachers set up, as you heard Kaylee talk about before, with student council doing a little bit of a fun activity out there. The bleachers, for those that were here for the fall sports, you saw we utilize that area as well. And then the senior area, the senior courtyard, is another location where they can go. Students have the opportunity to go to the auditorium if they choose not to want to eat that day, as like a quiet study hall area as well. So there's options for those individuals. And I don't think Mrs. Costa said before, but the lunch is free for everybody, continues to be free for everybody, as well as they get breakfast on the way out when they leave for the day. So that's what we have set up. Thank you to Mashios and to Mrs. Palisek for continuing to help us coordinate that as we try to ebb and flow every day. So that's a little bit about the transition plan. Mr. John, is it okay if I go right to athletics?
Please.
Okay. So just a brief report from Mr. Jackson, our athletic director. We have a winter athletics update because that all wrapped up and finalized because we had multiple Tier 2B seasons that were happening, if that makes any sense. We had actually girls volleyball, which was a fall sport that went to the winter. We had swimming and volleyball and wrestling wrapping up. So swimming boys were 3 and 4, girls were 1 and 6. Volleyball had a lot of tough matches, we were 1 and 8, a rebuilding year for them. And wrestling was 3 and 1 as an individual, as a group, because again, a lot of the challenges that took place. But some individual things that I just wanted to highlight from the wrestling season so far, as that just wrapped up this weekend. Lacey Humps for our girls wrestling, 4th in the state. Fantastic run for our ladies in wrestling. Sophia Lombardo, 5th in the state, and Noelle Gaffney, 7th in the state. So we had three state place winners for our female wrestlers, and that's just an outstanding job to them as individuals to persevere again to all that they were faced with, but also to our coaches that were assisting all along the way. And our boys wrestling individual tournament, because there was no team tournament this year, just an individual tournament that you may have heard. Clayton Utter, who was 3rd in the region, was also state qualifier. That took place at Phillipsburg this year, which again was very different. And we had somebody by the name of Brian Saldano, who was first in the region, and two-time state champ as well. So he capped off his run again this year as a state champ and looking for more all along the way. We have 183 athletes participating in spring sports currently. So that season is up and running. Still kind of unfolding as we get into it. Now about a full month into the actual beginning of the season. But for many of that season, at the beginning, we had a lot of overlap. We had season 2A of winter sports still going on. Our spring sports were still were going on. So kudos to Mr. Dexter for keeping all of that coordinated. We had coaches that had to coach both, along the way as well. So that took some time, but we worked through it. The NJSIA Scout athlete is Lauren Palucci, and that will take place again in a virtual banquet later on this year. Scout athlete we know is Olivia Dunn. Kudos to Mr. Dunn, and congratulations again. And that's May 19th, also at the Lake Long Country Club, and we've got some updates on that, because they were kind of in between for a little bit, figuring out what that was going to look like. So we're excited to be able to have some type of in-person banquet, and I know that the Pass Along organization is very excited about that too, so we're looking forward to that event. Summer physicals are going to be June 24th and August 5th. Right now that we have set up, and the Hall of Fame that we worked on, we met with our Hall of Fame committee, is going to be pushed to next year. We decided to move that to next year. We raffled around 3 or 4 different types of options and ideas to do that at the this year or in the beginning of next year at the fall. We just felt the best option was to move that till next year. As the Hall of Fame part of it, we are still working on the end of year awards and what that will look like for sports overall. Any questions on any of that?
Mr. Fowler?
Yes, Ms. Anderson.
Will you please make sure that Carly knows how much we appreciated the fact that she came here in person? It made a big difference to us. We've been missing our students, so make sure
Yes.
she knows.
I will pass it on. Thank you, Mrs. Anderson.
Yeah, I've been asking for that for the whole time I've been up.
We got it.
Appreciate it.
Yep, so Kay did a good job, and just a little bit of an example of what they're doing behind the scenes too. Continue to still try to she said a new normalcy, right? It was the words that Kayla used, and I think that was an important phrase, right? So I will pass it on. Thank you, Sean.
Thank you, Thomas.
As you look at these tables and these desks, you think to yourself, that looks a little bleak when you first see it. But I think that the kids have had the opportunity to be here now and be back in full days and eat together and be together. And you really see it in their, they appreciate school like they never have before. And I'm hearing it from all kids around that they actually love being at school for the first time perhaps since they were younger kids. And that's exciting in spite of the fact that it does look marginally bleak when you first look at it. Sorry.
No. Mr. Campbell is now going to give us an update on curriculum and instruction.
Thank you. It is great to be here and to be here in person. And it's great to see our kids back in greater numbers. I want to echo your compliments of our student council representative when she was here. Mr. Townley and I were preparing her for how it will work, and we said to her, the highlight of the night for our volunteer community members on the board is young people. So they are thrilled to see you, and she did a great job. So congratulations to her, and thanks for being here. Ms. Jessica Briggs in the board office takes photos constantly, and spring is here. So new theme here, we have a seasonal backdrop to our presentation, and it is beautiful. About 7 hours ago, U.S. News and World Reports released their annual rankings of schools. They rank high schools, colleges, and universities, and they do it every year. The criteria occasionally changes a bit. This year, the criteria was standardized assessments, graduation rate, AP participation, and AP success. I'm very proud of the fact that we jumped in New Jersey from 420 schools from 209th last year to 149th this year. I looked at 50 schools quickly this afternoon, all those in our area, and I think one other school moved 20 spots, but I didn't see any school anywhere make that type of jump, so it's great. I sent this out to the staff, and I did put it in an email. We are in the relationship business. There is no metric that can fairly and accurately and flawlessly account for when you love a young person and give them encouragement and support, and that has a transformative effect on them years down the road. So we are not here to win statistical analysis and awards, but when we are compared to our peers, we are darn proud of the fact that, that we do well. And I also think those metrics are indicative of efforts made by every single member of our school community. Every teacher, every administrative assistant, every adult who is in the building has an impact on student success. So we're very proud of that. If you take a look here, you'll see how we fared compared to our neighborhood, and we did quite favorably. We'd like to be that top one up there, but we're quite proud of where we are. Very happy that our testing will be canceled this year. We're not going to have state testing. And that is something that our students right now just don't need to be focused on. We are going to have AP testing, and that starts next week. And I want to thank Mrs. Beth Walton for the work she's done to prepare 250 kids to come in here and test in a few weeks. Last month I mentioned that we would be talking about our summer academy, and we are very excited that this summer we hope to have a large number of students in the building working on academic coursework and enrichment activities. There's the schedule of the 4 days that students will be in our building. We want students in the building. We want them working academically. We want them doing fun, meaningful enrichment activities. The entire program we will lay out here tonight is grant funded, and we are pleased to be able to invest in jumpstarting and reinvigorating engagement with many young students who were not here as often as we would have liked. So there are the 3 grants that we will utilize for this program. Supplanting is a major component of grants. You may not supplant. So when grant monies are awarded, as Ms. Palasek pointed out, they are earmarked for a specific purpose, and by statute, they may not replace the normal budgetary expenditures that your school carries out. They have to be supplemental. You must do something extra or additional with the grant funds. First, course remediation. So students who struggled to successfully complete a class. Many of them, not all of them, but students who earn a high enough grade towards the end of the year will essentially have their school year extended for the opportunity to come in, to be held accountable, to be here in person, to engage with their teachers, to work, and to demonstrate proficiency. Students who are failing this year are not failing primarily because of academic deficiency. They are failing because of the challenges the pandemic has presented on a social and emotional level. So we would not be educating the whole child. We would not be meeting their needs if we brought them in and solely focused on reading comprehension and factoring. So students who come and take advantage of this incredible opportunity to have their credit fully earned and to not have to take a second or a third required course next year will be required to participate every day in a social and emotional learning activity. I'll show you here in a minute. Here are the types of activities that these students, I think, need. Time management, study skills, anger management, dealing with stress and anxiety, substance abuse, motivational speakers, nutrition and exercise, etc. So the students who struggled, they will come in and they will be given academic instruction. There will be a level of accountability that they're here. There will not be a virtual component to this program because we need to connect with our students, and we think it's in their best interest that they be here for this. So we're quite pleased about that. These are the core courses that we will be inviting students to remediate and fully finish during the summer. Compensation, I believe, is fair, but it's contractual. So it is what the agreement calls for. We are asking that students pay a small fee, and if it's for academic remediation and they attend the program, that modest fee will be refunded. But we cannot plan and commit to our staff that we have a program, we have a job, etc. If every student who is invited gives us a verbal yes without any type of commitment. If a student is economically disadvantaged, absolutely no questions asked, we will waive that. We will likely keep the $30 for the enrichment program to offset supplies, transportation, and other components of that program. I believe $30 for a 4-day program that involves transportation, breakfast, instruction, and lunch is a great asset to the community. Students who enter the course remediation program will end the year with an incomplete, and after they complete a 2-week session, either in June or July, if completed successfully, will have that credit awarded. A whole other component of our summer academy is open to every High Point student. High-flying, high-achieving students, and the goal here is to have them do meaningful, curricular-related enrichment activities. We sent out a survey to the staff this week, and we presented this last week to our teachers, and we're trying to put together teacher interest and ability and student need to have 10 or 12 of these sessions. Right now, cooking is the #1 response from the students. I don't know how we would do it, but we'll find a way. If the students have a passion and an interest, and we can link them with an educator and build that passion and that relationship, we believe that would be a worthwhile investment. So it spans the full globe of what these programs could possibly be. I've included a funding report. We anticipate that it will be costly, but it will be entirely grant funded, as I mentioned before. So before I move on, does the board have any questions about that summer academy?
So the $30 that you would charge students, is that just a one-time fee, is it per course?
One time.
Okay.
One time. If you're willing to write a check and sign up, we feel we have enough of a commitment, we can lock in a spot, we can staff it.
Okay.
And we are not looking to make money off of this, we're looking to use that commitment as a way to properly plan. Here's what we don't want. We do not want to invest in a teacher's time and the district's money in having a program all set up, and we anticipate 23 students and 4 of them show up. That's not a good use of resources, and it doesn't help us or the students, so that would be the purpose for that.
And then they have to, you said that the money gets refunded to them if they successfully complete the course.
Correct.
So, can you define successfully?
Yeah, if they attend,
Okay.
right?
Okay.
If they, if you show up, very few, our teachers are incredibly dedicated to their students. The students that are failing right now are not the students that are here every day making a reasonable effort. It is students who have been disconnected and detached from the process who we're struggling to reel back in. So I'm fully confident that students who attend will work, will demonstrate proficiency, and will have done enough to earn credit. So, okay, great, thanks. One other program, tomorrow's teachers are very excited that on the agenda this evening is a expenditure for field trips. Ms. Rena Mills and Mr. Aldo Diodino began a course this year. It's a new elective. It provides field experience for High Point students to go into descending districts and to work with a K-8 teacher and to be very much like a college practicum experience or student teaching experience. We're pleased that Frankfort Township has been so generous to partner with us, and we have 8 or 10 students that will be going there in the afternoons in the spring and getting to do in-person field experience in education. So we're thrilled about that. This guy looks familiar. Just couldn't help but throw a photo in there. High Point is super, super proud It's great to have state recognition, and Brian is such a humble, dignified young man who carries himself with a great deal of class. And lastly, I just want to say that, as Mr. Talame said and Dr. Ripley said, the last 2 weeks, 2.5 weeks have been challenging, but highly successful. And if you look at our attendance, we're pleased that the average daily attendance has jumped up 25% overnight. We hope it will continue to increase. And we want our students here. It's a safe, caring environment, and it's not perfect, but our staff is doing an incredible job, and we're really proud of them and proud of our students.
That's since the full day started, it's gone up that much?
Correct. 270 is the average of the 2 weeks prior to April 12th. 340 is the average of the last, I think, 6 days.
Yeah, great.
So. Okay, thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Campbell.
Mr. Dunn, if you excuse me, I'm sorry, there's been a request that Ms. Mancuso, who is not here this evening, has requested the ability to present remotely. I'm not sure that we have that capability. If we do, is it possible, Mr. Yardley? Because we were not prepared for that, so I'm hopeful that that's possible.
Yep.
Is she gonna be on this screen?
We'll be on here.
She'll be able to hear. Okay.
Hello, good evening.
Hello?
Hello, it's just like virtual school. Am I too loud or just enough?
No, we corrected that.
You corrected that. Okay. I would, as far as April 12th reopening, I can speak for the whole staff. It was so great to see those eyes and eyebrows and hair of our students. We need them in person. We need them, they need us. It was terrific. I mean, we have lots of challenges of engaging both the hybrid, teaching virtually at the same time as teaching in person. But that in person, being able to see them, those eyebrows and eyes and occasional noses that are coming out, it is just so exciting that this is what we do for a living, to be there for our students. And I would want to thank the administration, and I want to thank the union and non-union staff that has pitched in. This is difficult. The challenges are every day is a different challenge, and it's very difficult. And to be able to adapt, and I want to take a moment to thank our teaching staff, to able to adapt to like the 5th schedule that has been put out there. And it's very demanding. And some days are people teach straight through and only have a 25-minute lunch. And I don't know about you, but I'm 58 years old and I have to go to the bathroom quite frequently. So it's very challenging. But we're working it out. And I just want to say, it's hard. It's hard on the students. The students are glad to be back. We're glad to be back. In September, hopefully, we will all be back together. And moving forward, HPA looks forward to our May 6th negotiations, and everybody be safe and stay well. And it is a team effort. It's just the bathroom breaks are gonna kill us here. But thank you for your service, and have a good evening.
Thank you, Mrs. Mancuso. I believe that concludes our presentations then. So we will proceed into other business. And I'm going to take a quick break because we jumped into our agenda so quickly. I didn't get to recognize the fact that we are in person for the first time in 13 months for a board meeting. And it feels great to actually see faces not two-dimensionally on a TV screen or on a computer screen. So our intention is to continue our in-person meetings. And just as a note to the public that we now have the ability for the public to attend in person as well, or virtually as was mentioned earlier. So with that, I believe we have a couple items in other business. Dr. Ripley, were you going to give it an update on full day, or we covered that somewhat?
Yeah, I just want to say real quick that it's gone exceptionally well, and it's great to have kids back full days. I think they're very excited about it, and it has been a team effort, and the administration has worked diligently to set that up, as well as the administrative assistants who have volunteered their time to assist, and the staff members who are coming in every day to be here to it's gone exceedingly well. So we're very pleased.
Thank you. The second item in other business is just a note that our May 18th board meeting has been moved to May 25th, so that's going from the third week of the month to the fourth week of the month. I believe we're all aware of that. And that notice will be published as they are required. So then we proceed to action items. And I'm going to attempt to move as much as I can in a block format so to preserve my speaking voice. So under curriculum instruction and technology, I'd like to accept items 1 through 3 and then jointly move items 4 through 9. 1, 2, and 3 are acceptance of the faculty attendance, student attendance, and the suspension report for the month of March. Item 4 is a recommendation to approve the harassment, intimidation, and bullying report for March 16th through April 27th. Item 5 is a recommendation to approve the curricular or co-curricular field trips listed on the attached roster. Item 6 is a recommendation to approve the professional development activities on the attached roster. Item 7 is a recommendation to approve the revised 2021-2022 school calendar with the removal of an early dismissal on April 14th. Item 8, important one, is a recommendation to approve the graduation date for the class of 2021 be confirmed officially for Tuesday, June 15th, 2021, beginning at 6 p.m. Of course, contingent upon current restrictions being lifted. Item 9 is a recommendation to approve the 2021 Summer Academy, a remediation and enrichment program to be held in June, July, and August that was just presented on. And that is all of the items in that block. So, seeking a motion on those items.
Motion.
Motion, and second. Any discussion on any of those items? Comments, discussion? If not, I'll take a roll call, please.
Mrs. Anderson?
Yes.
Mr. Klein?
Yes.
Ms. Nugent?
Yes.
Ms. Smith?
Yes.
Mr. Caraza?
Yes.
Ms. Dodona?
Yes.
Mr. Arnold?
Yes.
Mr. Dunn?
Yes.
All carried.
Moving into personnel. I will move the first few items individually. Item 1 is a recommendation that we accept with regret the resignation of Jacqueline Bambera, speech language specialist, effective on or about May 16, 2021. Seeking a motion? Second?
Second.
Any discussion or comments?
This is a significant loss. She is exceptional and has blessed the students of this community tremendously, and we wish her nothing but the best as she moves forward. She's a fabulous person, and it's our loss.
Any other comments? Roll call?
Ms. Dodona?
Yes.
Ms. Smith?
Yes.
Ms. Nugent?
Yes.
Mr. Klein?
Yes.
Mrs. Anderson?
Yes.
Mr. Caraza?
Yes.
Mr. Arnold?
Yes.
Mr. Dunn?
Yes.
Motion carries.
Item 2 is a recommendation by the superintendent that the board accepts with regret the resignation of Stacy Lambert, bus driver, effective June 30th, 2021. May I have a motion?
Motion.
Second?
Second. One is the first one.
We got that.
Yes.
Any discussion on item 2?
We wish Ms. Lambert nothing but the best.
Have a roll call on item 2.
Mr. Caraza?
Yes.
Ms. Nugent?
Yes.
Mrs. Anderson?
Yes.
Mr. Klein?
Yes.
Ms. Smith?
Yes.
Ms. Dodona?
Yes.
Mr. Arnold?
Yes.
Mr. Dunn?
Yes.
Motion carried.
And item 3 is a recommendation by the superintendent that the board accepts with regret the retirement notification of Lisa Hodgins, teacher of art, effectively April 30th, 2021. May I have a motion?
Motion.
Second?
Second.
And discussion on item 3.
I would like to say that I taught Lisa for a long time. Hodge has been such a champion of her students, of all students in the district. She loves those kids, they love her. She brings out their love of art. She, I think, pioneered the AP or honors art history program, it's not AP, honors art history program. And she just has been fabulous for the district. And I wish her all the best in her retirement. I hope she has lots of fun, because she had a lot of fun teaching, she should have a lot of fun in retirement.
I would like to say, I actually want to vote no, because I don't want her to leave. She's phenomenal, she's been great, she has been a phenomenal teacher and mentor, and just a person to be there for so many students. As my daughter said, if she needed a kidney, she'd give it to her. She's a phenomenal person, and it's sad for us from a a personal standpoint, but like in a selfish standpoint, but good for her. I do wish her the best.
We talk about relationships as the fundamental component of education, and she did establish that with her kids. And they loved her, and they loved being in her class, and she will be missed. We wish her nothing but the best.
Roll call vote, please.
Mr. Klein?
Yes.
Mrs. Anderson?
Yes.
Ms. Nugent?
Yes.
Mr. Caraza?
Yes.
Ms. Smith?
Yes.
Ms. Tadona?
Yes.
Mr. Arnold?
Yes.
Mr. Dunn?
Yes.
Motion carried.
Okay, I will move item 4 through 9 together. 4 being a recommendation to approve the appointment of Mindy Steiger as a long-term substitute teacher of art. Item 5 is a recommendation to approve the NJFMLA maternity childcare leave of absence for employee 1136. Item 6 is a recommendation to approve an extended sick leave for employee 1114. Item 7 is a recommendation to approve the following substitute teachers for the remainder of the 2020-2021 school year as listed. Item 8 is a recommendation to approve the certificated and non-certificated staff members for the 2021-2022 school year as listed in the attachments. And item 9 is a recommendation by the superintendent that the Board of Education approves the withholding of all increments for employee 455 for 2021-2022 school year. May I have a motion on items 4 through 9?
Motion.
Second.
Second. Any discussion on any of those items? Seeing none, may I have a roll call?
Ms. Nugent?
Yes.
Ms. Smith?
Yes.
Mr. Klein?
Yes.
Mr. Caraza?
Yes.
Mrs. Anderson?
Yes.
Ms. Tadona?
Yes.
Mr. Arnold?
Yes.
Mr. Dunn?
Yes.
Motion's carried.
Next in action items is extracurricular. And I do believe we have an updated number 3 in the addendum. So I would like to move in under extracurricular items 1 through 3. Item 1 is a recommendation to approve the following dates for physicals performed by the school doctor for the 2021-2022 sport season, and are as listed. Item 2 is a recommendation to approve Mark McPhee as a volunteer softball coach for the 2021 season. And item 3 in the addendum is a recommendation to approve the following volunteers for the spring musical as listed. I have a motion on extracurriculars 1 through 3.
Motion. Second.
Discussion on those items? None. So roll call vote, please.
Mrs. Anderson?
Yes.
Mr. Klein?
Yes.
Ms. Tadona?
Yes.
Ms. Smith?
Yes.
Mr. Caraza?
Yes.
Ms. Nugent?
Yes.
Mr. Arnold?
Yes.
Mr. Dunn?
Yes.
All carried.
Under policy, I'd like to move items 1 through, well, there's 1 and 2. Okay, item 1 is a recommendation to approve the second reading of the following new policies. Policy 1643, family leave, and Regulation 7425, lead testing of water in schools. And item 2 is a recommendation to approve the following revised policies and regulations. Regulation 2415.20, Every Student Succeeds Act, and the Regulation 5330.01, Administration of Medical Cannabis. I'll make the motion, seeking a second. Any discussion on any of those two policy items? Or comments? Seeing none? Roll call.
Ms. Sedona?
Yes.
Ms. Smith?
Yes.
Ms. Nugent?
Yes.
Mr. Klein?
Yes.
Mrs. Anderson?
Yes.
Mr. Caraza?
Yes.
Mr. Arnold?
Yes.
Mr. Dunn?
Yes.
Motion's carried.
We have, next up, negotiations, which we have no action items. But as Ms. Mancuso mentioned, we are looking forward to our next meeting with the EA. Under buildings and grounds, we also have no action items. And no comments, Ms. Anderson?
No.
Okay,
Not today.
so, no comments on the,
Not today, not today.
so then moving on to finance, I would like to move items 1 through 11 in block together. So item 1 is a recommendation to accept the report of the board secretary, business administrator for the month of March. Item 2 is a recommendation to accept the report of the treasurer for the month of March. Item 3 is a recommendation to approve the report of transfers and minimum expense transfer report for the month of March. Item 4 is a recommendation to approve for payment the attached schedule of audited bills dated April 27th. Item 5 is a recommendation to accept the adult education agency account, athletic account, cafeteria account, principal's petty cash account, and school store account for the month of March. Item 6 is a recommendation to grant permission to host the non-affiliated co-ed camp, 3rd grade through 9th grade. This is the High Point Drills for Skills Camp. Camp will be self-supporting and will charge $75 per participant. Item 7 is a recommendation to approve the creation of an additional student activities account, monitor online student fees. Item 8 is a recommendation to approve the agreement between the Hunterdon County Educational Services Commission to act as a selling agent in the sale of High Point Bus 21. And item 9 is a recommendation to approve and authorize the execution of the following tuition contracts between High Point Regional High School as ascending and the following districts and related information as listed. Item 10 is a recommendation to approve the disposal of 15 girls' basketball uniforms that are in disrepair. And item 11 is a recommendation to approve the following vendor payments for the upcoming spring musical to be reimbursed from the spring musical student activities account with no cost to the board. I have a motion on items 1 through 11.
Motion.
And a second?
Second.
Any comments or discussion on those finance items?
Number 7, where it says, an additional student activities account. Is that a new account that's going to monitor what online student fees?
That account will, when Mr. Campbell spoke before about the AP testing, we are currently utilizing the same system that we use for the lunches where the families put their money on their account with them. So this is a separate account so that the funds don't commingle because they were going straight into that account, which is in our general fund. So then we have to go through and pick each one out. So this is gonna allow us to keep them separate. It'll be easier for record keeping. We now have the student activity accounts in the business office. Mrs. Heller is managing those. And this is gonna make things much easier when you have SAT testing, any of those kind of fees where it helps the parents and the students to apply and pay for those programs.
Okay, thank you.
Any other comments? Okay, seeing none. May I have roll call vote?
Ms. Nugent?
Yes.
Mr. Klein?
Yes.
Mrs. Anderson?
Yes.
Ms. Sedona?
Yes.
Mr. Caraza?
Yes.
Ms. Smith?
Yes.
Mr. Arnold?
Yes.
Mr. Dunn?
Yes.
Motion's carried.
Okay. Last up, oh no, there's actually two more items in finance. Item 12, I will read in entirety. Be it resolved that upon recommendation of the superintendent, the board approves the adoption of the school budget for the 2021-2022 school year as follows. Travel and related expense reimbursement. Whereas the High Point Regional High School Board of Education recognizes school staff and board members will incur travel expenses related to and within the scope of their current responsibilities and for travel that promotes the delivery of instruction or furthers the efficient operation of the school district. And whereas New Jersey NJAC, as listed, requires board members to receive approval of these expenses by a majority of the full voting membership of the board and staff members, to receive prior approval of these expenses by the superintendent of schools and a majority of the full voting membership of the board. And whereas the High Point Regional High School Board of Education may establish for regular district business travel only an annual school year threshold of $1,500 per staff member, where prior board approval shall not be required unless this annual threshold for a staff member is exceeded in a given school year. And whereas travel and related expenses not in compliance with NJAC as listed, but deemed by the High Point Regional High School Board of Education to be necessary and unavoidable as noted on the approved High Point Regional High School Board of Education out-of-district travel and reimbursement forms. Now, therefore, be it resolved, the High Point Regional High School Board of Education approves all travel not in compliance with NJAC as listed as being necessary and unavoidable as noted on the approved High Point Regional High School Board of Education out-of-district travel and reimbursement forms. And be it further resolved, the High Point Regional High School Board of Education approves travel and related expense reimbursements in accordance with NJAC as listed to a maximum expenditure of $75,000 for all staff and board members. Next section, adoption of the budget for 2021-2022. Be it resolved that the budget be approved for the 2021-2022 school year using the 2021-2022 state aid figures, and the secretary to the High Point Regional High School Board of Education be authorized to submit the following budget to the Executive County Superintendent of Schools. And the table that is listed, I will read the total, the numbers in the total column. Total expenditures of $22,984,176, less anticipated revenues of $6,079,835, leaves taxes to be raised of $16,904,341. Be it resolved, the High Point Regional High School Board of Education approves the levy of general fund taxes for the 2021-2022 school budget to be $16,904,341. The 2021-2022 tax levy does not include any bank cap. As state aid has been reduced by $2.5 million over the past 4 years, this budget addresses health and safety issues related to facility and student-centered items and program integrity. Be it resolved, the High Point Regional High School Board of Education will utilize $150,000 of maintenance reserve as local revenue, and to advertise said budget in the New Jersey Herald in accordance with the form suggested by the State Department of Education and according to law. I'll make that motion. May I have a second?
Second.
Would anyone like to comment on?
If I could, on page 25, if we could make the adjustment of 2.5 million to 2.3 as we had in our presentation.
That's correct.
And also to remove the word tentative to advertise said budget in New Jersey Herald in accordance. And actually, yes, that could say we did do that. That was in the newspaper on the 22nd as in accordance with our budget calendar. We did hit all of our benchmarks on that.
Okay. So the one sentence will read, as state aid has been reduced by $2.3 million over the past 4 years, this budget addresses health and safety issues related to facility and student-centered items and program integrity.
And that information is more for context on the budget. It doesn't impact any of our budget figures, but I would like it to match and align with all of our data that we've provided everyone.
And we're striking the word tentative.
Yes, sir.
Okay, any other comments? I make this statement myself pretty much every budget that comes up, that I feel voting on the school budget is one of, if not the most important votes that a school board member can take. And although I think this year's budget may be a little less contentious, it's still incredibly important and valuable to the functioning of our school, and I don't take it any less lightly, and I'm sure none of the rest of the board do. But like I said, I always like to make that statement because this is how we do the biggest, we have the biggest impact on our community and the school system by sitting here as board members. So that's my soapbox. Anyone else?
I want to say, since you're talking about our group taking on the responsibility to approve this budget, we're approving a budget that we feel that the administration did a fabulous job putting together under very difficult circumstances. There were cuts that had to be made that impact the students. There are cuts that have to be made that impact staff, and it's a very challenging process, and they work their tails off getting it done to do the best that they could do for this community, and I appreciate that.
Very well said.
I would just like to point out again, I agree with what Ms. Anderson said, but going back to Dr. Ripley's presentation about the context, I think it's important to stress the fact that the overall budget is $778,316 less this year than it was last year. That's about a 3.3% decrease in the amount of money that what I anticipate we as a board are going to vote to spend. And that, in light of all the other financial situation, the loss of state aid and the problems that's put us in. So I would agree with both of you that I think the administration, Dr. Ripley, Ms. Polachek, have done a tremendous job giving us the most bang for our buck. We are not up here spending money like drunken sailors on shore leave. We've done everything we can, and again, focused on the students, which is where our job as a board belongs. And I'm proud, I will be voting for this, I'm very proud to vote for this, but I, again, stress that's $778,000 less this year. So I think that's something we as a collective group and the administration and Dr. Ripley and Ms. Polachek should be very proud of, and the community should be aware of that.
Thank you, Mr. Broughton. If no one else, we'll proceed to a vote.
Ms. Nugent?
Yes.
Mr. Klein?
Yes.
Mrs. Anderson?
Yes.
Ms. Smith?
Yes.
Mr. Caraza?
Yes.
Ms. Sedona?
Yes.
Mr. Arnold?
Yes.
Mr. Dunn?
Yes.
Motion carried. Thank you.
And the last item in finance, item 13, is a recommendation by the superintendent that the board approves the completion of the ESSER2 grant application and accept the grant money allocated to High Point Regional High School in the following amounts: $228,315 for the ESSER2 allocation, $45,000 for mental health support services, and $25,000 for learning acceleration. I'll make that motion, seeking a second.
Second.
Any comments, discussion? Okay, vote.
Ms. Sedona?
Yes.
Ms. Smith?
Yes.
Mrs. Anderson?
Yes.
Mr. Klein?
Yes.
Mr. Caraza?
Yes.
Ms. Nugent?
Yes.
Mr. Arnold?
Yes.
Mr. Dunn?
Yes.
Motion carried.
And next up is transportation. I feel so bad taking this from you, Mr. Cross, but I'll move.
I don't need a microphone, if you want me to power through this, I will.
Oh, please do that.
Got it. I'm gonna move items 1 through 11 together. Item 1, it's recommended that the board approve and authorize the contract addendum for deletion of a bus aid for the remainder of the school year as listed. Item 2, it's recommended the board approve a joint transportation agreement between High Point and Walkville Valley for transportation services for the remainder of this school year with a 5% administrative fee. Item 3 is a recommendation that the board approve a joint transportation agreement between High Point and Lafayette with a 5% administrative fee as listed. Number 4 is recommended the board approve a joint transportation agreement between High Point and Sussex Wantage for the remainder of the school year with a 5% administrative fee. Number 5 is recommendation to approve a joint transportation agreement between High Point and Frankfurt Township for services for the 21-22 school year with a 5% administrative fee. And again, please let me correct myself on the previous, all of these are for the 21-22 school year, not for the current school year. So that was number 5. Number 6, it is recommended the board approve a resolution for participation in a joint transportation agreement for students to special education schools for the 2021-22 school year with a 4% administrative fee. Number 7 is that the board approve a resolution for participation in a joint transportation agreement to public school, private school, charter, choice school, vocational, technical, and other schools for the 21-22 school year with a 2% administrative fee. Number 8 is a recommendation the board approve a resolution for participation in a joint transportation agreement between Sussex County Transportation Cooperative and High Point for anticipated athletic and field trips for the 21-22 school year with a 4% administrative fee. Number 9 is recommended that the board approve and authorize the quoted contract as listed for the 2020-21 school year. Number 10, it is recommended the board approve and authorize the joint transportation agreement for the remainder of the 2020-21 school year as listed. And number 11, it is recommended that the board approve and authorize the quoted contract for athletic trips for the 2020-21 school year as listed. I have a motion.
Motion. Second.
Any discussion? Roll call, please.
Mrs. Anderson?
Yes.
Mr. Klein?
Yes.
Ms. Nugent?
Yes.
Ms. Smith?
Yes.
Ms. Tadona?
Yes.
Mr. Caraza?
Yes.
Mr. Arnold?
Yes.
Mr. Dunn?
Yes.
All motions carried.
That completes our action items for the night. So, next up is correspondence. I don't believe we have any.
No, we did not.
Okay, so then next up is miscellaneous. The only note under here is if anyone needs to obtain their mandatory school board training, please contact the board office. Which reminds me also that I believe next meeting we will have a training session in advance of our public meeting. Well, in public, but in
It'll
advance
be,
of the.
yes, Kathy Hellowa, our school board representative, is scheduled to be here to do a training on the roles and responsibilities for board members.
Will that start at 5? Okay.
On the 28th?
The 25th.
25th, whatever, okay, that later date.
Whatever that 20 date is.
Okay, next up is our second public comments session. Same rules apply as the previous session. Please state your name and address. And I don't believe we have anybody here in person. So I'm going to ask Mr. Yardley if he sees anybody online with their hand raised. Looks like there's a lot of attendees, just no one wants to raise their hand, right?
But there are people that are online? Good.
Yeah.
Mr. President, can you just state that if people are on YouTube, that they can't access that, they really have to go to the website in order to do that?
We are only on Zoom tonight. We
Okay.
made that, yeah, just for that reason.
Okay.
Yes, so we were only on the Zoom meeting, and that was as advertised.
Yes.
Because in previous meetings, I know there was
Yes.
possibly some people that were trying to get on, so that's why I brought that up.
So I'll give it another minute or so, just to make sure we don't exclude anybody that wants to make a public comment. Okay. Goes to the second public comment session. Are there any non-committee board member reports or comments?
I would like to thank the administration for doing lunch duty every day. As, you know, they're, you know, it was important, everybody felt it was important to bring the kids back as soon as possible, and that included feeding them, obviously. And so, without them doing the lunch duty, it would not be possible, so thank you for those who are busting their pumps to get that done and take care of our kids, because it's important.
I would just like to point out some outstanding achievements from some Frankfurt students. One, Mr. Talladay mentioned it earlier, I would like to congratulate Lacey Holmes, who placed fourth in the female wrestling state tournament. Lacey is going to Lock Haven University, and I believe was just also joined the wrestling team at Lock Haven, and will be continuing her wrestling career in college. So I wish her nothing but the best. I know her mother is very proud. She's a really good kid and should do real well at Lock Haven. I would also like to congratulate Sean Van Wingerden, who was named the Technological Studies Student of the Martin Period. He's another great kid who I've known for many years, who I'm glad to see doing well academically as well. And finally, with regards to one of our alum, I'd like to congratulate Nolan Rowan, who is at Keene University and playing baseball there, and in his first start as a college pitcher, threw a no-hitter.
Wow.
So not many people throw a no-hitter, and to do it in your first start as a college freshman is pretty impressive. I remember Nolan from Little League, and I know his mom and dad are very proud of him, and I know they watch that with great pride, so I'd like to congratulate all three of those Franklin students.
Thank you, Mr. Scott. I did hear of the unfortunate passing of a longtime teacher of business that I wanted to mention, Mr. Everson, because I did not have him, but maybe Kevin.
Yeah, talk a little bit louder. What did you-
Mr. Everson is
Yes, Bob Everson's his past, yes. Yeah, I taught with him too. His claim to fame was, he was very, very tall, and he always had a big stack of books in his arms, huge. And he would reach over under the doorknob and then kick the door open as hard as he could, because that's the only way he can get through. And if there was a student in the way, so be it. He took out a lot in the long run. But he was just such a fun, pleasant, booming voice, business teacher who commanded his classroom, not just because he was tall and had a loud voice, but he was a good teacher and one of the original staff members of High Point when they opened in '66. There aren't a lot of them still standing. My dad is still standing, but there are not a lot. Mr. Molina passed away. So it's that crew is on their way out of this realm, but boy, are they remembered fondly. So thank you.
Thanks. Any other non-committee board member reports? If not, under other business, I don't think we had any open requests, so I'm not even gonna go into that. So, I will entertain a motion to adjourn.
Motion, second.
And a second, and all in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed? Good night, thank you.
It has been.